Take it right down, take it right down, right down. Take it right down, take it right down, right down.
Yeah. Boom to the hey, all you sports fans out there in the tubosphere. To you, the individual, as part of the collective. Welcome to Fast Track Sports Track College here on Talk Radio, version of the OMSR. I am your brief but concise host, Will, the alternative ESPN Sports Thrill. Always do a little show like this, let you know the clip order coming up and the whys to wherefores. It gets a significantly longer highlight reel that way, plus the quickie sport rant of the segment. So, talking briefly and concisely about that time of year. This is year 2. The OMSR is taking us on. College football, spring news, and such. Before fall, end of college basketball, start to focus on college football. The Big 2. Big 2 focus of the OMSR. Think of this as like ESPN-W. I'm like ESPN to you. Never graduate. It's what's kept me young. In my young 40s, still got it going on like in my late 20s. Of course, working out has a lot to do with that. All right, this is the baseline show for what's coming up. 4 parts. Part 1, talked about some spring game disappointments in terms of how much should you play your starting dudes. I got, 200 seagulls around here, and this twerpy bird up in the tree is the only thing you can hear. You gotta be kidding me. Part 2, Notre Dame's gonna take out the venerable grass and the battle at starting quarterback there. Part 3 is, see, I'm already forgetting a little bit. That's why I do these voiceovers right after what I've taken. Part 3, yo, wake it up. Yes, Jimbo Fisher versus Nick Saban in terms of how long should you keep in your memory what just happened. And there's some statistics to kind of show maybe Nick Saban's, he's always just so damn serious looking, and thus kind of insight to his approach doesn't always work out. In fact, rarely works out in terms of consecutive years. And then part 4, Bo Pelini and the Cornhusker Cat. Now, if you want to go back and see those other parts, you'll know when to fast forward to. Now, the thing about doing spring football news is it's not the OMSR's intent that any of these will be like that popular or go viral. That's just not the goal of the OMSR. It's to bring you some of these interesting tidbits. And from last year, some of them got fairly popular. Whatever happens is whatever happens. But in case you miss some of this stuff going on, you can always come to the OMSR. Between now and the end of August, we're going to spend a lot of time on this. All the video highlights courtesy to ESPN and College Football Live. Everything else to the OMSR. No silly DUIs while you're out there.
Brian Kelly and the Fighting Irish. Notre Dame, the biggest brand name in college football. Fires. Zone. Touchdown. Tavares Daniels. This is McDaniel running around the left side.
Ever GOLSON, an unbelievable talent, provides an added element to Notre Dame's offense. You take a look at what they've got coming back. Notre Dame could be dynamic.
Here's some of the history of Notre Dame Stadium. It opened back in 1930 and has a current capacity of nearly 81,000. The facility, which is used for football as well as commencement and graduation ceremonies, underwent a $50 million expansion that included a new grass field and drainage system back in 1997. Some of the greatest moments in college football history have taken place on Notre Dame's grass field. You don't need me to tell you that. But they will be making the change to artificial turf because they say they have trouble maintaining the grass because of excessive use. Is this sacrilege, or is this a wise decision for Notre Dame?
Notre Dame Athletic Director Jack Swarbrick, went to school there. He didn't want to have to do this. He didn't want to have to give up the grass. They tried everything, but they didn't feel they could come up with a suitable solution. If you watch that spring game this weekend, the field was an embarrassment. It was, people say it's dangerous to play on artificial turf. It's dangerous to play on that ripped up sod.
Joseph.
Yes?
You've got to be kidding me. This is
all
Notre
prefer
Dame.
grass.
They prefer grass. That's a joke. Listen, that whole thing right there, that's revenue driven. I don't care what anybody says. You cannot put a price on tradition. That place it's a cathedral. It's a football cathedral. You don't do that. It should be natural grass. I don't care if they want to have a graduation ceremony. Go ahead, have a graduation ceremony, but have it on the grass. They've been doing it that way for how many years? It's a fantastic venue. It's one of the best things in college football it has going for us. It's played on natural grass, and it should stay on natural grass.
What do you notice about the grass there?
It's perfect.
The first time I walked into Notre Dame Stadium, I looked around and I was like, where's the interlocking ND at midfield? There is none. And I said, where's the Notre Dame in the end zone? There was none, just these diagonal stripes. And I looked around and I thought, there's no signage, there's no advertisements here. I thought, this is so different.
No, you said, this is awesome.
It was great.
This is great. This is the way college football was meant to be played. And look at that field. It's pristine. It's absolutely perfect. That's the way it should be played.
They got these new technologies now, though. It's different than the artificial turf that you used to play on. They say it's not like concrete. They say they can, you know,
yeah, there's some great turfs out there.
Ground up.
What's the reason?
You want to play on ground up tire? You know, like that?
Joseph, what's the reason?
Is it not the same?
No, I mean,
Brian Kelly likes this, by the way. He thinks it's going to be great for recruiting.
Yeah, why will it be good for recruiting? Why would a player want to play an astroturf as opposed to grass?
The players say, look, we practiced on this artificial surface all week. Let's play on it. We're faster on it.
I've listened to all the same stuff. I practiced and played on all different kinds of surfaces. The thing is, everybody is playing on the same surface. It doesn't matter. What it comes down to, this is a financial decision for their football field. I think it's a mistake. I'm entitled to my opinion. I stick my tongue out at Notre Dame for doing that. You're ruined. That's a tradition you don't ruin.
The one thing I can tell you is that Jack Swarbrick said they're not going to go the Boise State route. So you know how they have the blue turf there? He's not going to paint the turf gold. It will be green.
Well, at least it'll be green. We know the skilled players, the wide receivers, they love the faster turf. What do linemen think about that? Would they rather dig their cleats right into that natural sod?
Linemen are creatures of habit. And so their habits are, if that's what we're playing on, then that's what we're playing on. They never complain. That's the one thing you always do. You hang out with the linemen because you know you'll always eat good and nobody complains.
With Notre Dame, and for those of you that thought Everett Golson would have no trouble being named Notre Dame's starting quarterback for the upcoming season, hold on to your shamrocks. In Saturday's spring game, Malik Zaire, a redshirt freshman, put up some impressive numbers and overall looked better than Golson. Here are the numbers that prove it. Malik Zaire, 18 of 27 rather, for 292 yards. Golson just 13 of 23 for 160. So if you're Brian Kelly, considering their performances over the weekend, gentlemen, how do you handle the starting quarterback position going forward?
It's Golson's job. And that's great that Zaire played well in a spring game. There have been a lot of players who have played very well in spring games and nothing in a regular season. You know what you have in Golson, and that's what you move forward with. And so he had, he had a couple passes.
He looked good.
He looked
really, Zaire looked
yeah, that's fine. There's a lot of
good.
guys who look good in those games.
What if, and we haven't been to every Notre Dame practice, but what if he, hands down, has outperformed him? They track every throw in those practices. What if he has outperformed him in all those practices, and maybe the players are thinking, wow, maybe this guy gives us a better chance to win. And Brian Kelly wants one quarterback. Do you not choose the guy who led you to national championships just 2 years ago?
Do you not? Well, no, I don't. To be honest with you, until you're around it every day, and we're seeing one example here in the spring game. But if you're with him every day and he shows that kind of consistency day in and day out, and the players have a belief in him, then he's going to get a chance to play. And then it's off that chance that you judge it.
Now, similar quarterbacks here. One is left-handed, one is right-handed, but they're both strong-armed, and they're both mobile. So it's not as though you can go two quarterbacks and, one guy's going to be the runner and one guy's going to be the pocket passer.
Which you don't want to do anyway, Joe.
See, Brian Kelly wants the one guy. Now, I spoke to Everett Golson on Saturday evening after the game. He told me he was disappointed in his performance, that he understands that he needs to develop his pocket presence. Both of these guys are having trouble in decision-making. Remember, 2 years ago, even though Everett Golson led Notre Dame to the national championship, like Golson told me, it was a very limited package. This spring, Brian Kelly, a year away due to academics, has thrown the kitchen sink at Everett Golson. He's calling the plays. They want to expand the offense. He's got, weaponry. It's not just one receiver. He's got a lot of guys to go with. So,
2 years ago, that was that.
but he
that
got
team,
benched
It was benched.
several times.
Because it was inconsistent. What wasn't inconsistent on that team was the defense, and that's how they played the game. So if they don't have that same defense, they're going to need more out of the offense. And so having said that, you're going to have the most dynamic guy there. But there are two things. You can take all the measurables, Joe. All those things are fine. But there are some things that you can't measure, and that determines a quarterback. And that is decision-making and poise. And it is very, very hard to determine that in a short period of time. You have a little bit better understanding where Golson is because of that. And if he's struggling with decision-making, which apparently he has based on what he said, that's a big deal. The poise part of it, poise is another piece of the puzzle that is really hard to identify. It's most likely identified, or most of the time it's identified, when you don't see it. Not necessarily when it's there all the time. Sometimes you have guys with great poise, and you're like, you just take it for granted.
How good is it for Golson now to have someone pushing him from behind, someone that's going to challenge him every day in practice?
It'll depend on him. And some guys react to that very favorably, and some guys don't. It's really interesting. I think it's a healthy thing for them. I don't think there's any question that it's very healthy.
I spoke to Corey Robinson, the wide receiver for Notre Dame, who's a guy to watch this year. His dad, the Admiral, David Robinson, was at the game. This guy, similar in terms of size and jumping ability. He said that presence is the word that he would connect to Malik Zaire. So even though Zaire didn't play last year, he's well liked by his teammates. Not that Golson isn't, but remember, he was away for a year. So he's trying to reconnect that relationship. Very fascinating dynamic in the quarterback room at Notre Dame right now.